thoughts and kind of want to get a pulse of the Arkansas fan base. Just how excited are you guys for the return of the Texas-Arkansas rivalry?
I think people that have been around, 30 plus years watching Arkansas play football, it just brings back a lot of memories, a lot of entertainment, a lot of excitement, a lot of big upsets. Not remembering too much of when it goes the wrong way. Texas is one of those teams that, has always felt like it has more, and they have an embarrassment of talent, embarrassment of riches. We've joked over the years, they don't recruit. They have like Saturday morning signups. We'll take you. We'll take you. We'll take you. Everybody's in line. And if they didn't pick you, you go somewhere else. And then there's so many of those players that they help other teams, compete. But Arkansas, there's a certain group of teams. LSU's another one since joining the SEC that you feel like you've had more than a couple of upsets against them. And so there's this excitement that maybe it can happen again. And in the series over the last 12 games, Arkansas is, I think, 7-5. And I think it's 4 straight wins they've had over Texas. None of that really matters in this game, but as a fan, you remember that. And you remember what Arkansas fans felt like was a rivalry in the Southwest Conference days. So you get excited about playing this game. But, man, this is, on paper, not a great matchup for the Razorbacks. But, hey, that's also something they're accustomed to seeing in the past, and some still are not discouraged by that. And we've seen the line move, I think, from 16.5 to 13.5, which is significant. It's still a little early because there'll be, I'm sure, a lot of money coming in late, as is often the case. But we'll see how much of a Texas favorite this game ends up showing us.
Once again, thank you both for joining us this morning. Let me ask you about Coach Pittman. He is, there are universities that, as things start to go sideways a little bit, or there's rumors about you being there and not being there, it starts to come in on how much fans don't like the coach themselves. There's something about their personality. Sam Pittman has a kind of cool personality. I think he always has. Is that holding the Razorback fans together about this guy because they truly do like him? There's nothing much to dislike about Sam Pittman, is there? As a human being, as a leader, as a coach, as a man around town.
Yeah, I would say you're not going to meet a more genuine, down to earth guy who gets Arkansas. Part of winning at Arkansas has traditionally come mostly with guys who have embraced and understood the underdog mentality that and the chip on the shoulder that our state really has. And Pittman embraced that when he came in, and his career's embodied that. Ultimately, all fans want to win, but sure, you do have that likability factor with Pittman. I think that gets his players, gets the most out of them, gets them to play for him. But Hog fans want to win. And in a college football playoff world, you think, man, if we can just be a little bit better than maybe we've been traditionally, we got a chance to sneak into that playoff. Everything's changed, though. Everybody's got, not everybody, but most teams have a new roster. One of the things that's impressive about Texas is how many high school players came in as highly touted recruits, have developed, and I think led to the culture and team that you're now seeing. At Arkansas, this thing's kind of ongoing throughout the year because there's 50 plus new guys, many of which, are your starters that have to come together as a team. And so I think Pittman's going to be back next year. It was hot seat talk and all that in the offseason. They're miles ahead of where they were a year ago. And it's inconsistent right now. But if the team that shows up that did against Tennessee, I think they can play with just about anybody in the country and certainly make it a fourth quarter game.
Yeah. Bo Mattingly from the Chuck and Bo Show on ESPN Arkansas is joining us here on Texas Sports Unfiltered. Yeah, perfect segue, Bo. I want to ask you about that Tennessee game, right? I mean, Arkansas has had 3 or 4 chances to pull off mammoth upsets this season. They got the Vols a couple of months ago, against LSU, didn't go great. Against Ole Miss 2 weeks ago, went horribly wrong. What was the difference in that game? What did Arkansas do so well that allowed y'all to knock off top 10 Tennessee?
As good as Tennessee's quarterback has been, Nico is also inexperienced. And you get in an environment like that, and I think they were able to see some things that Oklahoma had done and surprise the Tennessee offense with the way they lined up and played defense, and they really bought into it. I think motivation's a big thing in football. You get guys believing in a plan, fired up. It doesn't overcome everything, but it can get you to play at your best level. And Arkansas did that against Tennessee. And then on offense, they really committed to the run. There were a number of third and short, fourth and shorts that they were able to convert and just kind of pound away, not huge rushing numbers, but just pound away to keep your playbook open and make it a little less predictable for the defense. When Arkansas's struggled, it hasn't been able to do that, and they've turned the ball over. They did all the right things really in that Tennessee game, including putting a drive together to start the third quarter when they were down 14-3. We saw Taylen Green play one of his, I think, most complete games. He wasn't perfect, but when Taylen Green's on, he's protected, which some of those things I just mentioned can lead to that. That's when you're going to get Arkansas at its best, and I think that's what you saw against the Tennessee game. Surprisingly, we really didn't see it against LSU, which is, a rivalry type game for Arkansas, and certainly Ole Miss came in and embarrassed the Razorbacks. Turnovers are the commonality when Arkansas doesn't play well, and turnovers in their own end, that lead to points have really been an issue for them in their losses this year.
Now, Bo, is that due to Taylen Green's being still that inexperienced part of him that are the consistent part of his game? Because when he gets outside the pocket and he starts to ad lib, he can do some things with the ball. He finds guys that are open. I don't know if they're spectacular wide receivers, but he tends to have his sight down the field. I think a lot of people think he's that guy, likes to dance around and then he wants to run. Dude likes to look down the field as he's moving around. I notice he eyeballs down the field. He can run. We know that. He can make you miss in the open field. But he does look to throw the ball once he's getting, once he breaks the pocket too. He'll try to throw into some tight windows. He's not afraid to do that.
It reminds me, you guys were talking about the Tyson, Jake Paul. We can't really call it a fight, cash grab, entertainment, whatever it's going to be, that we're all going to watch because that's why we like sports to begin with. But Tyson, what's his famous saying? Everybody's got a plan to get punched in the face.
Yep.
So this is the Taylen Green thing. He's really good and he's got a great coordinator, but when the game plan gets rattled, the experience, you can't substitute it. So you got to go through, right? And you got to go through when it's not happening, when you're not protected very well, and when to take off running and when to make that throw. And I'm kind of interested just to see how he plays the rest of the way with some of that experience under his belt. He's also been hurt some. And I think you're going to get a pretty healthy Taylen Green. But the thing that was different against Tennessee is I just felt like for whatever reason, they'd just gotten embarrassed basically by A&M's defensive front. I mean, A&M's got a really good defensive front. And they dominated that game in Arlington with their defensive line. And so they came out of that game. And sometimes when you come out of a game like that, you're able to really get everybody focused. And they just looked better up front to me offensively. And that really helped Taylen in the Tennessee game, and they're going to need that kind of effort to have a chance against Texas.
Yeah, Bo, I think you kind of partially answered this question, but saw the injury report last night. Both Taylen Green and Jaquindon Jackson were listed as probable. We played the audio of Sam Pittman on the teleconference yesterday, and he didn't sound super high on Taylen Green. Maybe it's a little gamesmanship, but he was talking about him still being limited a little bit at practice and maybe not being the same guy. So I guess I'll ask you to kind of elaborate on the injury status or the health status of both Taylen Green and Jaquindon Jackson.
Taylen was at the Sam Pittman live show last night and said he's good. He's ready to go. There's always a little caginess, around these injury reports and whatever. For Arkansas to have its best chance to win, I think Taylen Green has to play at his level. Nothing against Singleton, the backup. He's good. Taylen just has another ceiling, I believe. And he seems healthy and ready to go. I don't know if anybody's 100% healthy at this point in the season. I'd be surprised if Taylen doesn't start, and unless he gets banged up or doesn't play well, I would expect him to be the guy Arkansas rolls with throughout the game.
And Jaquindon Jackson.
And Jaquindon, yeah, he's actually, I think, healthier than he's been in a while, thanks to that bye week. And Arkansas's got a good stable of backs, but Jaquindon Jackson's on another level, and certainly means a lot to him and Taylen Green playing, a team from Texas, being from that DFW area.
Definitely. No doubt. I mean, Jackson's incredible. When he's healthy, he's one of the best in the business. I mean, big, strong, physical guy. I mean, like you said, you get into those third and shorts, he's getting the ball. They have no problems turning around and handing it off to him off tackle or wherever you want to, because he can lean for about 3 yards. He's a big kid.
And one of those great stories.
He's gone through a lot.
Having been a quarterback, going to Utah and coming in and seeing him have that success. He's fun to watch. We all appreciate, sometimes regardless of your rooting interest, you love watching good players play.
Yeah.
And he gives that feel, kind of jumps off the screen at you when you're watching him.
Yeah, Bo Mattingly from ESPN Arkansas with us now. All right, Bo, shifting over to the Hogs defense, the injury report last night, 3 defensive backs listed as outs. I know Jalen Braxton is a guy who's been out for a while for the Hogs. He's not going to go on Saturday. Texas last week played a very banged-up Florida secondary, and Quinn Ewers had one of the best games of his career. The statistics for Arkansas's pass defense are not very good this season, and I think a lot of folks saw what Jackson Dart and Ole Miss were able to do a couple of weeks ago in Fayetteville. What's the concern level with that Arkansas secondary going up against this Texas passing offense on Saturday?
It's high. It's very high. High concern for after watching Ole Miss just throw it over Arkansas's head the entire game, and knowing that Sark and Kiffin cut from the same cloth in some ways. And what will Arkansas do? When they played LSU, they really gave a cushion to the receivers, and Nussmeier just killed them underneath the entire game. And that it may take a little bit longer to score, but it wasn't entirely effective, obviously. And then the other thing that's just really, it's deflating, right? When you give up a deep ball touchdown and then you give up another one and you're able to score in chunks like that, it's so deflating. That's a key to this game. There's no question. Arkansas's got to figure out a way to keep that Texas offense from just, throwing it over their head and scoring easy touchdowns. Braxton is one of their best corners, hasn't played all year. I think the secondary's been a concern all year, and we'll see what they can come up with. Obviously, getting pressure on the quarterback, stopping the run, keys for anyone who's trying to slow down a passing attack.
Yeah, and the thing about Texas right now, Bo, when you watch them, the run game is okay, but it's the backs that come out of the backfield, and the way Sark, schemes up these guys, and some short passes get you in bad situations where you've got your dime guy on a running back coming out of the backfield, or just lining up in the slot and going against them. They're all really kind of capable of catching the ball, and especially Blue. He's as good a receiver as he is a running back right now. And I think teams are finding out they'd rather see him come out of the backfield than to line up in the slot and get you one-on-one with especially a linebacker. That's not a good deal. And Sark finds these things out. There's a lot of eye candy immediately. And if you've got guys that are struggling in your secondary, that's where the problem comes in.
It's like they say, you better not have Will on your team, because if you have Will on your defense, they're going to run at Will and pass at Will the entire game. And so Travis Williams, the Arkansas defensive coordinator, did a great job coming up with something against Tennessee, and they played above their heads, I think, defensively for what Tennessee had offensively, but it also confused maybe a young quarterback, and he missed some open guys, and you don't expect that with Quinn Ewers with his experience level. But you've had a bye week. What can you throw at Texas, if anything, that maybe does confuse them? But man, Sark is so good. And the great ones are, right, at how do you get your players the ball when everybody knows you want to get them the ball, and finding out different ways out of the backfield, formations, all those kinds of things I mean, he's made a career of doing that, and that'll be challenging for Arkansas on Saturday.
Yeah, Bo, I know you guys take a lot of calls and texts on the Chuck and Bo show. I'm curious what the trash talk has been like in Fayetteville, and if you've got a couple of funny comments from callers or texters that come top of mind when getting ready for this Texas game.
Well, we have a particular caller who gives Texas a bad name and leans right into all the stereotypical Texas fan stuff, which is, just arrogance and looking down on everyone else. You've been given so much and done so little with it, is the trash talk that comes from the Arkansas side. While there's always an excuse on why it hasn't been better on the Texas side. If you're Arkansas, you can say, well, we don't have that kind of recruiting base. You don't have all the things, all the money, everything's bigger. I mean, we didn't even have a Buc-ee's. We're going to have a Buc-ee's now. I mean, like, you guys have had everything first. What are your excuses? And so Arkansas was like, hey, we got plenty of excuses. You don't have any. And that's the back and forth. And that's been the feeling, I think, and that's led to some of this. Rivalries are really about fans, right? Like, just talking to each other. But we've got Brian in Ozark, as he calls in on the show, that he's waiting. He's laying in wait, ready to pounce and let us know about it on Monday, I'm sure.
Well, we'll just let you know that we would like to thank the SEC for this wonderful schedule that we were presented with in year one, joining the conference, because that's all we hear about is what a weak schedule. I said, well, if you wanted us to join, you had to give us a weak schedule. Somebody had to get the rough. We had to give Oklahoma. Somebody had to get the bad schedule.
This is the thing, too, when they talk about 9-game schedules in this league, they're not all the same. But when you add an SEC team to your already 8-game schedule, you don't know who you're getting. And that's a very dangerous proposition. That's not just some league talking about adding one more team on their schedule. And what comes around will go around in the SEC.
Sure.
Schedule wise, but yeah, it is a fortunate schedule. All you can do is play the teams that are in front of you. And even though Arkansas is going to be a 2-touchdown underdog in this game, I'm sure Sark keeps telling his team, like, hey, every one of these games is a prove-it game.
Yeah, we love to be
kind of in a playoff now.
We love to be playing really back-to-back weeks.
Yeah. Well, but when you don't have the best schedule in terms of strength of schedule,
sure,
it'll be interesting to see what kind of margin for error you have with this committee. We can talk about that all day, right? Like where these teams are ranked right now. It doesn't really matter because most of it will play itself out, but there'll still be a lot of controversy at the end. And if Texas is a 1 or 2 loss team and they're being looked at comparatively to a team that had a tougher schedule, it could end up hurting them. So I'm sure Sark is, maybe if he's talking about these types of things, like, hey, man, we don't have any room for error. We're in the playoffs right now.
Yeah. And that's kind of been the motto.
I think Texas sees it that way, Bo. I think they understand they need to get to the championship game. And hell, it's almost like you got to win the championship game. It's we were in the same situation last year in the Big 12 of after losing to Oklahoma, every week was a championship week. It's the same now. It's no different. After losing to Georgia, it's a championship week and it's week in, week out. That's just the way it goes in this conference. Until they start taking 5 or 6 teams in this conference, in that 12-team playoff, it's going to be, you can't afford to have, only the real rich with a good schedule can have 2 losses. 1 loss could get you in some trouble here.
I've got a question for you guys, if you don't mind. I want to hear from a Texas perspective. I gave you sort of the Arkansas take on playing Texas, and they've upset them a few times, so they feel like, oh, there's always hope to do that again. Do Texas fans even concern themselves with Arkansas, like this being like, oh, you got to kind of watch out for that game? Or is it just like you're playing, a Mississippi State or a Florida or whatever?
No, not at all. Not for me. I asked my partner. I've been afraid of this game before. When we started talking about this at SEC media, I was horrified of this game. This is the one on the schedule that I was most worried about. I felt better about playing Georgia at home than I did playing Arkansas there. There's just something about the rivalry and the true hate that Arkansas fans have for Texas fans that will drive that, and it permeates through the team. I mean, you have to put 11 guys on the field, but it just kind of permeates through the team, with the fans for this particular game, and especially away. I won't feel the same when Arkansas comes to Texas. I won't have that same. I can tell I won't have that same feeling about. I'm worried about this game. Going there, I'm worried about, and I'm still worried about it today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, Bo, I think I've got I think some Texas fans have a little UTSD, as we like to call it, from the last 2 games against Arkansas, right? I mean, the beatdown at Razorback Stadium in 2021, and then the Texas Bowl in 2014, where Brett Bielema called it borderline erotic, holding Texas to 59 yards of total offense. So I think there's some of that, and it's such a generational thing, right? So I'm 30, right? Like, in my lifetime, Texas and Arkansas have never been in the same conference. So I don't hold the hatred to the Hogs. I know I'm supposed to hate them. I know they're a rival, and I don't think it's going to take me very long to hate them. But the question you asked is different if you ask a 30 or younger Texas fan versus 40 plus. 40 plus will be like, oh, yeah, we hate this. We realize how big it is. Some of the younger crowd might just say, and we know we're supposed to hate him, but it's not the same as any of the other rivals that we have.
Identical here. Yeah, exactly as you described it and how people feel about it. I think maybe one of the differences is you were raised, if you came up in Arkansas and you're 30 years old, you were raised to not like Texas. You were just basically told you didn't know why. You didn't. It's like the stove is hot. You don't know. Like, you're not really going to test that for yourself, but just know, you don't like those guys. Yeah. And the other interesting thing is so many kids from Texas go to school at Arkansas.
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, over half the enrollment, 30,000 kids. So you're looking at 17, probably to 20,000 students from the state of Texas at the university. And if they didn't go, if their parents weren't Texas fans, everybody else in Texas doesn't like Texas, right? If you're a Baylor fan or, SMU or whatever. So now you're at the University of Arkansas. And so you kind of join in on that. Like, oh yeah, we don't like that biggest team in the state.
We talked to Ethan Burke, who's an edge rusher on this Texas team, earlier in the show. And he grew up in Austin, right? Went to Westlake High School here. And he's like, man, I've had 7 or 8 dudes who I went to high school with who have been texting me talking trash all week long. And I'm like, didn't those guys grow up as Texas fans? He's like, yeah, but they're at Arkansas now, so they think it's cool to hate Texas. So following your point, that's exactly what goes on with a bunch of kids from this state. It's good. All right, Bo, before we let you go, we got to get a prediction, man. Really appreciate your time this morning, but you mentioned that Texas currently a 13.5-point favorite as we sit about 50 hours from kickoff. Who do you think wins on Saturday, and what's the final score?
I always, obviously for business and for all my friends and all the people I know want Arkansas to win. I used to think you can't say things like that if you're in TV news or journalism or whatever. But the truth is, everybody that's covering their team probably has a better day if their team wins. You just don't want to let it cloud what you're doing and get too emotional about it. I really don't see a path. I mean, there's a path for Arkansas to win, but I don't feel the same things around this game that sometimes you feel around upsets. And Texas has the answers. They're aware of Arkansas. They're not sneaking up on them in this game. And it's an 11 a.m. game. And Texas has so much to play for. I think you'll get a highly motivated Arkansas team that plays Texas really tough. And it might be a really tough cover for the Longhorns. But if you're asking me to pick a winner, I think the Longhorns probably figure out a way to win this game.
Good stuff. Bo, really appreciate
That's just an honest assessment, not what I want to have. By Friday, I need 24 more hours, and then I'm going to think, you know what? I see this happening. That's how it goes. But by the time you get to kickoff, it's like today is actually the air is different. It's going to be that day. But today, that's where I am on Thursday.
Well,